So in this video, we're going to talk about how to use absolute value inequalities to solve some real-life problems. So remember, we're going to use this four-step problem-solving process that we always use when we're solving word problems. So remember, we're going to start off by understanding the problem, so it's going to be very important to define any variables, and then underline, circle, or highlight important information. Then we're going to make a plan to solve the problem, and in this case, that's going to involve setting up equations or inequalities to model our problem situation. So then we're going to solve the equation or inequality that we wrote, and then we're going to check to make sure that our solutions are reasonable. So when we read word problems, we need to be on the lookout for some important terms and phrases that help us set up inequalities to solve our problem. So if we see any of these words or phrases, we're going to know which inequality sign to use. So for example, if we see fewer than or under, we know we're going to use the less than sign. So it's important to keep this chart handy as we work through our word problems today. So here's what we're going to do to solve applications of absolute value inequalities. We're going to start off by writing an absolute value inequality to represent the problem, and that's going to involve, translating those phrases into inequality symbols. And then based on the inequality sign, we're going to rewrite it as an and or an or inequality. Then we're going to solve the absolute value inequality, and we'll graph our solutions on a number line if we need to do so. And then we'll write our solution in the context of the problem. So let's look at this first problem. It says the ABC Tooling Company produces screws that have an average length of 1.2 inches. The screws have to be at most 0.04 inches from the average length before they can be packaged to be sold. What are the ranges of lengths that are acceptable for the screws that the company produces? So as I'm reading this problem, I notice this very important phrase right here, this at most. And if you refer back to that chart we were talking about, you can see that at most represents the less than or equal to sign. And so that's going to be very important when we work on setting up our inequality. So I'm just going to go ahead and write this less than or equal to sign here because I know that's going to be the sign that I need in my inequality. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off by setting up my inequality. And remember, we have that formula that x minus c, and then our inequality sign, which in this case is going to be less than or equal to, and then we have r, which is our range, right? So remember, c is that central value or the average that it gives us in the problem. So in this case, that's 1.2. So I know that the absolute value of x minus 1.2 has to be less than or equal to the range, which in this case is 0.04. So now I can go ahead and just solve this inequality. So since it's a less than or equal to, remember this is going to be an and inequality, so it's going to be negative 0.04 is less than or equal to x minus 1.2, which is less than or equal to 0.04. So now to solve this inequality, remember I need to go through and I just need to add 1.2 everywhere to isolate my x. And so I'm going to add 1.2 to all three sections. And so that is going to give me 1.2 minus 0.04, which is 1.16. And that's less than or equal to x, which is less than or equal to 0.04 plus 1.2, which is 1.24. So that means that the ranges of lengths are 1.16 inches to 1.24 inches. And so all those screws will be acceptable for packaging. So now let's try this example. It says that an alien is visiting his friends on Earth during Thanksgiving break. His normal body temperature is 80 degrees Fahrenheit. The alien can survive on Earth only if his body temperature is no more than 5.3 degrees Fahrenheit off from normal. Write and solve an absolute value inequality to determine the range of body temperatures at which the alien can survive on Earth. So here, once again, we have that situation where we have that key phrase, right? We have this no more than. Okay, and if we refer back to our chart, you can see that the no more than means less than or equal to. So I'm going to take this information from my problem and I'm going to set up my inequality using that less than or equal to sign. So in this case, the central value, the average value is 80 degrees. So I can say the absolute value of x minus 80 is less than or equal to the range, which is 5.3. So now I can just set this up to solve as an and inequality. So this is going to be negative 5.3 is less than or equal to x minus 80, which is less than or equal to 5.3. So now I'm going to go through and solve for x, and I can do that by adding 80 everywhere. So I'm going to add 80 to all three sections. And when I do that, I'm going to get, 80 minus 5.3, that's going to be 74.7, and that's less than or equal to x. and that is less than or equal to 5.3 plus 80, which is 85.3. So that means that the ranges of temperatures are 74.7 degrees Fahrenheit to 85.3 degrees Fahrenheit. And those are reasonable temperatures, right? Those are not kind of, very unusual numbers or anything. So this works in the context of our problem. So now you can go ahead and pause the video and try doing this word problem on your own. So in this one, it says that Allison got a new job as a singer and is on the hunt for an apartment closer to her recording studio. So it gives us the average here. It says the average monthly rent is $650, and the price could vary by a maximum, and that's another one of our keywords and phrases. Maximum means less than or equal to, and then we have 125. So in this case, our value of C is 650, and then 125 is our R. That's our range. So if we go ahead and set this up as an AND inequality, we have negative 125 less than or equal to x minus 650, which is less than or equal to 125. And so we can solve by adding 650 everywhere, which gives us 525 less than or equal to x less than or equal to 775. So that means that the ranges of apartment prices are $525 a month to $775 a month. So remember that you can apply absolute value inequalities to solve problems that involve real-life situations. Look for important words and phrases to translate the word problem into an inequality. Then you're going to solve the inequality to determine the possible solutions.